At 70, I stood in front of my vacation home in Naples, Florida, my hands trembling as I held the keys. "What's this old freeloader doing here? There's no place for you here," my daughter-in-law Jessica shouted from the balcony. That morning I had arrived early, thinking the house would be empty as always. But my home had been taken over by her family. My belongings were ruined, the garden destroyed. That morning, just as I had done for the past 20 years, I drove from Miami to Naples. The familiar road, the curve along the coast, the salty breeze, the palms leaning against the blue sky. This house was the symbol of everything I had achieved. Every brick, every tile, every plant was bought with money I earned as a seamstress after my husband died. When I turned into the gate, something felt wrong. Strange cars filled the garage. Loud music blasted in what was once my quiet space. As I parked, my chest tightened with a clear sense of dread. Stepping out, the sight stole my breath. The garden I had cared for all these years was wrecked. Beer cans littered the neatly trimmed lawn. Children were running wild, kicking a ball into my geranium pots. The wicker chairs I had bought last year were covered with dirty clothes and wet towels. I walked slowly toward the door, the keys heavy in my hand. And then I saw Jessica, standing at the front door as if she owned the place. She was wearing the apron I had embroidered for her 10 years ago. Her cold stare was one I knew all too well. "Jessica, I didn't know you were here. This is my house. For 20 years I've come here every holiday," I said, trying to stay calm. She burst out laughing. It wasn't laughter, it was poison. It made me feel small, like a stranger in my own home. "Come on," Michael said we could use the house anytime we wanted. "Besides, we're doing something useful here. You're the one who only complains and ruins family plans." Before I could respond, more people came out, behind her. Valerie, Jessica's sister, with 2 teenagers. Jessica's mother, her silver hair shining, looked at me with contempt. An older man in a Hawaiian shirt, a younger woman carrying a baby, and another man smoking on the porch. They all looked at me like I was the problem. "Is this the mother-in-law you keep talking about?" Jessica's mother sneered. "I thought she'd be impressive. Turns out she's nothing special." Their mocking laughter hit me like arrows. 70 years old, in simple clothes, I was ridiculed by strangers inside the house I had built with sweat and sacrifice. "Where's Michael?" I asked, my heart racing. My son had to be here to explain this madness. "Michael's at work like always," Jessica replied, arms crossed. "Unlike you, he has real responsibilities." "Listen, Barbara, there's no place for you here anymore. All the rooms are full. The kitchen is busy feeding everyone. Your presence just makes things harder." I froze. She was throwing me out of the very house I had built brick by brick after my husband's death. The house I had worked endless nights to pay for. Jessica kept going, her smile cruel. "Michael and I already talked. This house should be used more. Leaving it empty is a waste when we have kids who need space to grow up." Her words hit like stones to my chest. 20 years I had poured into this place after my husband died. 20 years of paying off the mortgage with money from sewing jobs. 20 years of caring for every corner, every tree. "This house is mine, Jessica," I said, my voice weaker than I wanted. "I have the deed. I pay all the expenses." "Enough," she cut me off. "Always with my house, my money. Michael is your son, isn't he? What's yours is his, and what's his is mine. That's how normal families work." The kids went silent. Everyone watched me, waiting for my reaction. My face burned with humiliation, but something inside me refused to. "Bow down." One of Jessica's nieces stepped forward, challenging me. Why don't you go stay at a hotel? My aunt's right, there's no room left. I forced a small smile that didn't reach my eyes. All right, sweetheart, I understand. Jessica smirked in triumph. The others laughed like they had won. They had no idea what they had just unleashed. I walked back to my car slowly but with pride. As I drove to find a hotel, my mind drifted to the past, when this place was just an empty lot of weeds. I was 50, Michael was 25. Just the two of us against the world, and I had made the biggest decision of my life, to build a safe haven for the family. The Seaside Inn charged $120 a night, money I hadn't planned to spend, since I should have been sleeping in my own bed. But I had no choice. I checked in like a stranger, while my house was occupied by them. That night, sitting on the balcony of the hotel, watching the lights of my house in the distance, I felt something I hadn't in years. A cold, calculating anger. Not the kind of anger that makes you shout. No, this was worse. This was the sharp anger of a woman who had survived poverty, widowhood, and decades of hard labor. Jessica had made a fatal mistake. She had underestimated Barbara Miller. The next morning, I woke at 6 a.m. after a sleepless night. Every time I closed my eyes, I saw Jessica's smug smile and heard her venomous voice. I drank a quick cup of coffee and decided to return to the house, hoping we could talk calmly. Maybe it was a misunderstanding. Maybe Michael would step in and put an end to this madness. At 8 a.m., I arrived. The front door was locked. My own door, and yet I had to ring the bell like a stranger. Valerie, Jessica's sister, opened in pajamas, her face annoyed. "What do you want now?" she snapped. I explained that I needed a few personal things and to speak with Jessica. Her reply stunned me. "Jessica's sleeping. Your stuff isn't in the house anymore. We packed it in bags and left it in the garage to get it out of the way. My belongings, thrown into bags like trash. My chest ached." She let me in, but I felt like an intruder in my own home. The smell was unfamiliar. Greasy food, smoke, cheap perfume. The living room was a mess. Air mattresses, clothes everywhere. When I stepped into the kitchen, my heart nearly stopped. The kitchen I had designed for family meals was ruined. Grease stains, the sink piled with filthy dishes, my best pan blackened beyond repair. "My china set, where is it?" I asked, my voice trembling. "Oh, some broke. The kids were playing. Jessica said they were old anyway." The china set I had saved for years to complete, only brought out on special occasions, discarded as if worthless. I climbed to the master bedroom, once my sanctuary. The door was wide open. Inside, Jessica's mother was putting clothes into my closet as if they were hers. "Excuse me, this is my room," I said, struggling to stay calm. "Oh," Jessica explained everything. "Don't worry, I'll keep your things safe." She pointed to plastic bags, my dresses, shoes, carefully folded clothes shoved inside like donations. Two strange men were sleeping in my bed, my favorite pillow thrown on the floor, dirty. Amid that madness, I noticed something. My hidden cabinet where I kept important documents and heirlooms was open. Only I knew about it. My heart pounded. I waited until Jessica's mother left, then rushed to check. Everything was ransacked. Papers scattered, some on the floor. My mother's jewelry gone. The property deed crumpled. Worse, there were unfamiliar documents with Michael and Jessica's names. I picked them up with trembling hands. They were transfer papers, an application to move ownership into Michael's name, claiming I was old, mentally impaired, and incapable of managing property. Me. The woman who had managed her finances for 70 years. built wealth from nothing, still working and independent. They wanted to declare me incompetent to steal my home. The papers were dated last week. This wasn't a random occupation. It was a calculated scheme, using the law as a weapon. At the bottom, I found something that froze my blood, an appraisal valuing my vacation home at $600,000. On it was Jessica's handwriting. With this money, we can buy a bigger apartment and send the kids to private school. Just need M to sign so the old lady won't cause trouble. The old lady that was me. That was how they spoke of me while stripping away everything I had built. I shoved all the documents into my bag as evidence. This wasn't just an invasion. This was theft, fraud, a planned heist carried out with the help of my own blood. As I headed downstairs, I overheard Jessica on the balcony, speaking loudly on the phone. She wasn't even trying to hide. "No, Mom, don't worry." The lawyer said it's easy. Since Michael's an only child, he can claim inheritance early if his mother is declared incompetent. Once the house is in his name, we can do whatever we want. Inheritance early due to incompetence. They wanted to declare me senile to steal my home while I was alive. Yes, we already sent the fake medical report. Paid $50 to some cheap clinic doctor to sign that she has dementia. Michael hadn't wanted to at first, but Jessica convinced him it was for the kids. A fake medical record, a corrupt doctor. My son persuaded that robbing his mother was for the good of his children. I left without a word. There was nothing left to say. Words had lost all meaning. This wasn't a family conflict that could be fixed with dialogue or love. This was war. And they had fired the first shot with lies, forged papers, medical corruption, and the manipulation of my own son. Driving back to the hotel, my hands shook on the wheel, not from fear, but from resolve. I knew exactly what I needed to do. Barbara Miller would not be a victim. I would be the author of my own justice. On Monday morning, I drove straight to the bank. I needed to know exactly how much money I had to prepare for this fight. For 20 years, even after paying off the house, I had kept saving. Each month, I put aside $300 from my pension and sewing jobs. I had learned early that savings meant strength, safety, freedom. Mr. Johnson, the bank manager, had known me for 15 years, a serious man who respected my discipline with money. "Barbara, what can I do for you today?" he asked warmly. "I need the exact balance of all my accounts, and I need to discuss a sensitive legal matter." When he showed me the numbers, I smiled for the first time in days. I had $87,000 in savings, $23,000 in CDs, and $12,000 in checking, $122,000 in total. Jessica had been wrong. She thought I was just an old woman living off a tiny pension. She didn't know Barbara Miller had worked tirelessly, saving for precisely this kind of situation. "Mr. Johnson, I need you to block any attempts by others to access my accounts, and I need a formal letter from the bank confirming I am fully capable of managing my finances." "Of course, Barbara. Is there a problem?" "My family is trying to declare me incompetent to seize my property." His face grew serious. "That's very serious. Would you like me to recommend a lawyer who specializes in this?" "Yes, please." He handed me the name and number of Thomas Grant, a lawyer specializing in family law and property fraud. "He's the best in the field. Tell him I sent you." I left the bank with a new surge of energy, not just relief at knowing I had the funds to defend myself, but clarity from having a clear plan of action. I called Thomas Grant right there in the parking lot. His secretary scheduled me for that afternoon. The lawyer can see. "Down you at 4 p.m. Urgent, isn't it?" "Very urgent." The rest of the morning, I organized every document I had gathered, the fake transfer papers, photos of the damage in the house, a list of missing belongings, and copies of the legal deed. I even printed screenshots from Valerie's social media posts, bragging about our new vacation home. At 4 p.m., I sat in Thomas Grant's elegant office. He was middle-aged, silver at the temples, sharp eyes full of intelligence and trust. "Mrs. Miller, tell me everything. Don't leave out a single detail." I laid it all out. The invasion, the humiliation, the fake papers, the forged medical report, the stolen jewelry, Michael's betrayal. He took careful notes, asking precise questions that revealed his experience. "Do you have the original deed?" he asked, looking up. "Yes, everything." "The house is 100% in your name?" "Yes, I paid for every brick and have every receipt from the past 20 years. The doctor who signed the dementia report, had he ever examined you?" "Never. I don't even know who he is." "Excellent. That's falsification of medical records, a federal crime. Do you have proof of the stolen jewelry?" "Yes, especially my late husband's watch, insured for $3,000. Thomas smiled. "Mrs. Miller, this case is a guaranteed win. We have unlawful occupation, theft, forged documents, attempted property fraud, and likely medical corruption. Your family has made a very big mistake." "What can I do?" "A lot. Tomorrow we'll file for eviction due to unlawful occupation. Then we'll report the theft of jewelry to the police. Next, we'll submit the fraudulent medical report to the medical board and the prosecutor's office. And finally, we'll request an injunction to stop them from fraudulently using your name." "How long will it take?" "Eviction can be immediate if the judge sees clear evidence. In this case, the squatters have no legal rights, so the court will act quickly." "How much will it cost?" "My fee is $5,000 for the entire process. I can pay today." He smiled. "I like working with serious clients like you. Mrs. Miller, your family thinks you're just a powerless old woman, but they're wrong. You came prepared." "I've been preparing for 70 years to defend myself against life, counselor. I won't stop now." "Excellent. But there's an important question. Are you ready to see this through? Because once we start, your relationship with your son will likely be broken beyond repair." I stayed silent for a moment, thinking of Michael, the boy he used to be, the man he could have become, and the coward he had chosen to be. "Counselor, my son betrayed me for money, declared me incompetent for money, and humiliated me for money. If a mother-son relationship can be destroyed so easily by money, then it was never real to begin with." Thomas nodded with respect. "I understand. We'll move forward with everything. Tomorrow we'll file all the lawsuits. I want them to understand they underestimated the wrong opponent, and I want them to learn that the consequences of betraying family are real and permanent." "What do you want?" "I want this case public. I want every friend, neighbor, and acquaintance of theirs to know the truth. That can be done. Court records are public, and we can ensure local media covers the story." I left his office with an entirely different state of mind. I was no longer Barbara Miller, the betrayed and humiliated mother. I was Barbara Miller, the woman arming herself with every weapon the law could provide. That night, from my hotel room, I called my sister Linda in Houston. I told her everything. "Barbara, I can't believe Michael would do this after everything you sacrificed for him." "Sacrifice doesn't matter anymore, Linda. What matters is what I will take back." I hung up, sitting on the bed and staring toward my house. From the hotel window, I could still see the lights, hear the music, the party continuing as if nothing had happened. But tomorrow would be very different for all of them. On Tuesday at 8 a.m., Thomas Grant arrived at my house with 3 legal documents, a police officer, and a notary. I got there on time by taxi, wearing my best gray suit and carrying a briefcase full of evidence. Jessica's family was having breakfast on the terrace when they saw the convoy pull into the garage. I saw Jessica drop her coffee cup when she recognized the police car's plates. "Good morning," Thomas said loudly, professional and firm. "I am attorney Thomas Grant, legal representative of Mrs. Barbara Miller, the rightful owner of this home. We are here to serve an immediate eviction order for unlawful occupation." Jessica panicked, her face etched with shock I will never forget. Valerie came out behind her, holding up a phone to record it like a show for social media. Jessica's mother, wearing one of my robes, froze in fear. The officer read the eviction order and listed the violations: trespassing on private property, vandalism, theft of valuable belongings. As he spoke, I looked at their faces, first disbelief, then shock, and finally fear as they realized their actions would carry consequences. "You have exactly 2 hours to gather your personal belongings and leave this property," the officer declared. "Everything belonging to Mrs. Miller stays. I will supervise to ensure nothing is taken unlawfully." 2 hours? No way. There are children here, Valerie screamed. "You should have thought about that before occupying someone else's home," the notary replied calmly. At that moment, Michael drove up, his face stricken with despair. Clearly someone had warned him the police were there. "What's happening here?" he gasped. "Your wife and her family are being legally removed for unlawful occupation," Thomas explained, "and you are summoned as an accomplice in attempted property fraud." I held up the documents. "These transfer papers you were about to sign to steal my home, Michael. Your wife hid them in my secret cabinet." Michael's face went pale. I looked into his eyes, searching for the boy I once raised, but all I saw was a stranger, a man who chose money over his mother. "Mom, I can explain." His voice shook. "There's nothing left to explain. You already made your choice." Jessica leaned in, whispering something in his ear. Michael shook his head, clearly unsettled. "What is she telling you to say to the police, Michael? That your mother is insane? That I'm making this up?" Those words cut deeper than any insult Jessica had ever thrown. Even faced with evidence, faced with the law, they still planned to brand me as incompetent. "Mr. Michael Miller," Thomas interjected, "this is your official summons. You have 3 days to appear in family court to answer charges of conspiracy to commit property fraud against an elder," Michael blurted. "But I'm her son." "She can't sue her own son," the officer replied. "The law doesn't exempt family ties when it comes to fraud or theft. A crime is a crime, no matter who commits it." The next 2 hours were chaos and humiliation. From my terrace, I watched the collapse of the occupation they had plotted so carefully. Jessica's mother was the first to break. After half an hour of crying and screaming, she slumped onto the steps, refusing to pack. "This is all your fault, Jessica. You said everything was taken care of." "You said the old woman had agreed." "Mom, shut up and help me pack," Jessica shouted, shoving clothes into plastic bags. The children cried, running around in panic, not understanding why they had to leave the place they thought was theirs. A boy, about 8 years old, ran up to me, his eyes red. "Ma'am, why are you kicking us out? We didn't do anything wrong." My heart clenched. The children were innocent, pawns in their parents' scheme. "I'm not sending you away because of anything you did," I said softly. "I'm only asking you to leave because this is my home, and your family came without permission." But my mom said this is our house. Your mom was wrong. Jessica overheard and stormed over, furious. Don't talk to my kids. You have no right to confuse them further. I'm not confusing them. You're the one who deceived them by bringing them to a house that isn't yours. This is our house. Michael is your son. Children inherit from parents. Children only inherit after their parents pass away, not while they're still alive and well. I may be old, but I still need this home. Thomas stepped in immediately. Everything you just said about my client's age is being recorded as additional evidence of age discrimination and psychological abuse against an elder. Jessica went silent, her face burning with rage. Michael stayed quiet too, avoiding my gaze, focusing only on hauling suitcases to the car. When only 30 minutes remained, he came closer. Mom, we need to talk. There's nothing left to say, Michael. I admit things got out of hand, but we can resolve this as a family. No lawyers, no police. How? You keep the house. We admit we were wrong for showing up unannounced. In return, you drop the charges and will return all the jewelry that was taken by mistake. Mistake? You expect me to believe stealing my jewelry was a mistake? That forging medical reports was a mistake? That falsifying transfer papers for mental incompetence was a mistake? That humiliating me, calling me a parasite in front of others, was a mistake? Michael had no answer, no excuse for so many betrayals. It wasn't me, it was Jessica, he whispered at last. But you were there. You watched your wife insult me in my own house and stayed silent. I didn't know what to say. You knew very well what to say, Michael. You were supposed to defend your mother, but you chose silence to please your wife. Michael looked desperate, searching for a way out that no longer existed. Fine. Jessica was wrong. I admit it. What else do you want? I want the truth. You planned to steal my home with forged papers. You betrayed me for money. No, I didn't betray you for money. I did it for my family. And what am I, Michael? Am I not your family? You are, but Jessica and the kids are my main responsibility now. So your main responsibility is robbing your mother? Michael buried his head in his hands, broken. You don't understand. I work day and night, and it's never enough. I need to pay for private school, for clothes, for vacations. Jessica's house needs repairs. Money is never enough. So you decided I should pay with the work of my entire life. You live alone in a small apartment. You don't need a vacation home this big, it's just wasted space. The truth was finally out. Michael hadn't betrayed me out of love for his family. He betrayed me because he believed I didn't deserve the fruits of my own labor. Wasted space? I repeated, each word heavy. I didn't mean it like that. 30 years of labor is wasted? A lifetime of saving to build this home is wasted? All the sacrifices to raise you alone after your father died wasted? Enough, Michael shouted. You always remind me of your sacrifices, always make me feel guilty for wanting my own life. The room went silent. Even Jessica stopped packing. That's the truth, I said calmly. You didn't betray me for money. You betrayed me because my sacrifices became a burden you couldn't bear. I never said that. You didn't need to. You just screamed it. Michael stood frozen, panting, his face red with shame and anger. Do you know what hurts the most, Michael? If you had needed help, I would have given it. If you had told me about your financial struggles, we could have found a way together. But instead, you chose schemes behind my back, humiliation and legal theft, because I knew you'd say no. How would you know if you never asked? Because you've always been too controlling with money, too strict with your accomplishments. Controlling? Michael, I paid for your college. I bought your first car. I lent you money for your first house deposit. I helped you financially countless times. Were all those moments controlling too? Finally, I understood. Michael hadn't betrayed me out of greed, but out of pride. He couldn't stand relying on his aging mother any longer. You're right about one thing, Michael. I should have let you fend for yourself sooner, instead of always rescuing you. But it's too late to change the past. Now you'll get your chance to be completely independent, because from this moment, every struggle is yours alone. I won't be helping anymore. Thomas glanced at his watch. 10 minutes left. The final scene was chaos. Jessica screaming, the children crying, Michael carrying the last suitcases with a face full of defeat. As they got into the car, Jessica rolled down the window and shouted, "This isn't over, you bitter old woman. We'll appeal. We'll prove you're insane." "Go ahead," I replied calmly. "My lawyer will be waiting." The cars drove out of the garage, dust rising. Michael was the last to leave. He glanced at me in the rearview mirror, but I had already turned my back. Thomas walked up. "Mrs. Miller, how do you feel?" "Tired," I admitted, "but free. Free from pretending to be a happy family. Free from justifying betrayal with motherhood. Free from the illusion that forgiveness can erase everything." The police said goodbye. The notary finished the paperwork. Thomas handed me the keys. "Mrs. Miller, the house is officially yours again." I climbed the terrace steps and sat in my favorite chair. For the first time in a week, I was alone in my own home. But the story wasn't over yet. That afternoon, I hired a professional cleaning service to erase every trace of the invasion. I paid $500 for 5 women to work the entire day, scrubbing every surface, washing every stain, putting everything back in order. As they cleaned, I walked through the house, noting the damage. In the living room, my beautiful embroidered pillows were stained with red wine. In the master bathroom, someone had spilled hair dye into the porcelain sink, leaving black marks that couldn't be removed even with strong chemicals. In the kitchen, my 2 French pans were burned beyond repair. In the garden, half the plants I had nurtured were trampled to death. But the worst part was the personal belongings that were gone forever. Along with the missing jewelry, I discovered that the family photo albums were gone too. Those albums held pictures of Michael's childhood, snapshots of me with my late husband, the memories of a lifetime built with love and devotion. The wall clock my father had given me on my wedding day was missing as well. It didn't carry much financial value, but its sentimental worth was immeasurable. A week after they were evicted, my home slowly regained its peace. The strange smells were gone, the stains erased, the furniture back in place. But I knew some things would never return to normal. Betrayal leaves invisible scars that time cannot erase. That day, Thomas called me with news that made me smile for the first time in weeks. "Mrs. Miller, important update. The doctor who signed the fake dementia report has been suspended by the medical board. The investigation revealed he had signed at least a dozen similar reports for money." I froze, thinking of the countless other families who must have been robbed of their elders' property through that corrupt doctor's schemes. "And what about legal consequences for Michael and Jessica?" I asked. "Here's the best part. The prosecutor has decided to pursue criminal charges for property fraud and conspiracy. It was no longer just a civil matter, it had become criminal, which meant they could face prison if convicted. And it also meant they were bleeding money on attorneys. I didn't feel joy, only a profound sense that justice was being served. I didn't want to see my son in jail, but I couldn't let him escape the consequences of his actions either. That afternoon, I received an unexpected call. Valerie, Jessica's sister, was crying on the line. "Barbara, please, we need to talk. Jessica is desperate. Michael has already spent more than $15,000 on lawyers, and the process isn't even close to finished." "And how is that my concern?" I replied. "We want to apologize to settle this peacefully. Do you want to apologize, or do you just want me to drop the charges because you're running out of money? Please, Jessica still has kids to care for. Michael could lose his job if this gets out at work. They should have thought about their kids before plotting to rob me." Michael should have thought about his job before forging medical documents. "But you've already got your house back. You've won. Why punish us further?" "Because having my house back doesn't erase the humiliation, doesn't bring back the jewelry, doesn't heal the wound of being betrayed by my own son. We can return the jewelry. It's at my mother's house. They were taken by mistake." "Mistake? Stolen by accident while packing up? Please, Valerie, tell your sister that if she wants to talk, she needs to come herself and bring back every stolen piece of jewelry." I hung up, feeling both satisfied and sad. Satisfied that their plan to ruin me had collapsed into dust. Sad because I knew my relationship with Michael might be beyond repair. 2 days later, Jessica showed up at my door. She came alone, without Michael, holding a bag, her eyes swollen from crying. "Barbara, I came to return the things and to apologize." I let her in. Sitting in my living room like a scolded child, she placed the bag on the table and pulled out the jewelry piece by piece. "These are the pearl earrings. This is the gold watch. These are the silver coins. And this is the necklace that we took by mistake." "Mistake?" I repeated, my voice bitter. "The truth is, I was the one who took them. I didn't mean to steal, I just planned to sell them. We were drowning in debt. Michael lost money in a few bad investments last year. We were behind on the mortgage, maxed out the credit cards. The kids needed school tuition, so we took them." Jessica broke down crying, not the fake tears I had seen before, but real sobs, the sound of someone finally realizing the seriousness of what she had done. "Barbara, I admit I was wrong. Very wrong. But I was desperate when Michael said you had a beautiful house you hardly ever used. I thought, you thought you could take it without asking. I never meant to steal. I just wanted to use it when you weren't here. Then, when the costs of keeping 2 houses felt too much, we thought it would be better to transfer the house into Michael's name to avoid legal complications later." "Legal complications? You created them yourselves when you forged medical records. That was the idea of the cheap lawyer we hired. He said it was the fastest way to transfer property within the family." I stayed quiet, trying to comprehend the ignorance and naivety they had fallen into. They had ruined their lives financially and legally by trusting a corrupt, second-rate attorney. "Where's Michael?" I asked. He didn't want to come. He said you're not his mother anymore." Those words hurt more than I expected, but they also confirmed I had chosen the right path. "He said I'm not his mother?" "Yes. He said a real mother would never sue her son, that you chose money over family. And what do you think, Jessica?" I think we started this, but I also think you went too far. We could have solved this within the family, no lawyers, no police. Solved it how? When you never once told the truth, when you lied, tricked me, and plotted behind my back to rob me. But we're family. Families forgive. Family is built on respect, Jessica, and you disrespected me in every way possible." Jessica stood, ready to leave. "So that means there's no way to fix this." The only way to fix it was to never do it in the first place. After she left, I sat on the terrace, watching the sunset. The waves hit the shore, indifferent to human tragedies. A week later, Thomas called with the final news. Mrs. Miller, Michael, and Jessica have accepted a settlement in court. They must pay a fine of $25,000, each serve 200 hours of community service, and remain on probation for 2 years. No jail? No. But they'll carry a permanent criminal record. The fake medical report has been nullified. Your full legal competence is confirmed. And their legal expenses? They've spent over $30,000 on defense lawyers. In total fines and fees, more than $50,000 trying to steal your home. Nearly half the value of the house when I first built it. They had lost more than they could have ever gained if they had succeeded. A month later, I decided to do something I had never done before. Hire a part-time housekeeper to watch over the property while I was away. Not because I couldn't handle it myself, but because I wanted the assurance that no one could ever invade it without me knowing. Maria, a middle-aged woman living near the Florida coast, needed work. She came 3 times a week to keep the house clean and safe. I also changed all the locks, installed security cameras, and updated my will, leaving the house to a charity instead of to Michael. If he wanted financial independence, now he would truly have it. One Sunday afternoon, while rearranging things in my bedroom, I found an old photograph that had slipped behind the dresser. It was Michael at 8 years old, sitting on the beach where I would later build the house. His innocent face smiling wide, showing missing baby teeth, his eyes shining with joy. I sat next to him in the photo young, with black hair untouched by gray, my hand proudly resting on his shoulder. A sharp pang of sorrow forced me to sit down on the edge of the bed. How had we come to this? How had that joyful boy grown into a man who betrayed his own mother? Where had I gone wrong? Perhaps Michael was right about one thing. Maybe I was too controlling with money, too quick to remind him of my sacrifices. Maybe I should have balanced better between helping and letting him stand on his own. But does that justify betrayal? Forged medical documents? A plan to rob me? No, nothing justifies that. The mistakes of a parent may explain some things, but they don't erase the moral responsibility of a grown child. Michael was no longer that 8-year-old boy. He was a 45-year-old man making his own choices, and now he had to live with the consequences. I put the photo away in a drawer. Memories belonged to the past. I needed to face forward. 6 months later, I received a letter from Michael. A letter, not a phone call. He didn't even have the courage to speak directly. "Mom, I hope you're well. The kids ask about you. Jessica and I have learned our lesson. Maybe one day we can be a family again." I didn't respond. A real family does not betray for money. They don't humiliate their elders. They don't plot theft with forged documents. Michael had chosen money over his mother, and I had chosen dignity over unconditional forgiveness. The following spring, I decided to stay at the vacation home for a full month. It was the first time I'd stayed so long since the ordeal. I invited my sister Laura to spend 2 weeks with me. We planted new flowers in the garden, cooked childhood recipes, and sat for hours on the porch watching the ocean. "Do you miss him?" Laura asked one evening as we drank tea. "Every day," I admitted. "But I miss the son I thought I had, not the man he has proven himself to be." "Do you think you'll forgive him someday?" "Maybe. But forgiveness doesn't mean forgetting or pretending nothing happened. Forgiveness is accepting what happened and moving forward. And for now, moving forward meant keeping my distance. On my 71st birthday, I received a card from Valerie. Inside was a photo of the kids and a note saying they missed me. I was surprised. Of all people, I never expected kindness from her. Perhaps she had learned something too after all of this. I sent Christmas gifts to the children, but nothing to Michael or Jessica. The kids were innocent, blameless for their parents' choices. They deserved to know they still had a grandmother who loved them, even from afar. I began attending a support group for seniors in Miami. There, I realized my story was, sadly, not unique. Many elders had faced similar betrayals by their own families. Some lost everything because they lacked the courage or resources to fight back. Others, like me, had found the strength to defend what was rightfully theirs. A woman named Dolores told me her son sold her house while she was hospitalized, claiming she would never return. When she recovered, she discovered she had no home to go back to. Another woman, Carmen, shared how her 3 children drained her bank accounts while she battled cancer, leaving her without money for treatment. Their stories made me see that what I went through wasn't just a family tragedy, but part of a larger social problem: the lack of respect and the exploitation of the elderly, often by their own families. I decided to use my experience to help others. I began giving talks on senior rights at community centers. I shared my story, teaching others how to protect themselves legally. I even volunteered for a hotline that supported elderly victims of family abuse. Each time I helped someone stand up for their rights, I felt the pain I endured take on new meaning. A year after the ordeal, I heard from Laura that Michael and Jessica had divorced. The financial strain and the weight of public shame were more than their marriage could withstand. I felt no joy in hearing of it, only sadness for lives ruined by choices they had made themselves. One Saturday afternoon, while I was watering the garden, a car I didn't recognize stopped at the gate. Michael stepped out, alone. He moved slowly, as if carrying an invisible burden on his shoulders. "Mom," he said, standing a few yards away. I looked at him without answering. His face was gaunt, with deeper lines etched around his eyes. He looked 10 years older in just 1 year. "I came to apologize," he said, his voice breaking. "Not because I need money or help, not because I want anything from you, but because I finally understand what I did. I betrayed you in the worst way. I let you be humiliated, almost lose everything. I signed the forged papers. I stayed silent when I should have defended you. There's no excuse for me." He stepped closer, but still kept his distance. "I don't expect forgiveness right away, maybe not ever. I just want you to know that I truly regret it, and I understand why you did what you did. You were right. Always right." I looked at the man before me, not the son I once raised, not only the betrayer I had endured, but a stranger searching for his way back. "Thank you for coming, Michael," I finally said. "Forgiveness takes time." He nodded, taking my answer as an opening, not a rejection. In the months that followed, I began letting the children visit now and then. Their laughter lit up the house, bringing me joy I had missed for too long. I taught them how to bake cookies in the kitchen, told them stories of their father when he was a boy, and showed them how to care for the garden. They never spoke of what had happened. Perhaps they had been told not to, but sometimes I caught the oldest, Sophia, looking at me with curious eyes, as though piecing together fragments of a story she only half knew. One Sunday morning, while we were planting young tomato seedlings, Sophia suddenly asked, "Grandma, why did you and Dad fight so much?" I froze, looking at her. She was only 11, yet her gaze carried wisdom beyond her years. "Sometimes, Sophia, adults make very big mistakes. Your parents made mistakes that hurt me deeply." "What mistakes?" she pressed. I thought carefully before answering. I didn't want to shatter her image of her parents, but I also couldn't lie. They tried to take something of mine without asking something very important. This house. This house? She repeated, still digging a small hole for the plant. She frowned. Mom said you were really cruel to them. I only made them face the consequences of their choices. Some people call that cruel. I call it fair. Sophia finished planting, patting the soil down with her tiny hands. I think I get it, like when I take my sister's things without asking, she tells Mom. I get mad at her, but really it's my fault. I smiled, amazed by the simple yet profound way her young mind understood. That's exactly right, my dear. That night, after the children had gone, I sat on the porch watching the sunset. My thoughts wandered. Through the last 2 years, the betrayal, the pain, the fight, the victory, and finally, the slow rebuilding. Forgiveness didn't come like a lightning strike or a dramatic revelation. It came gradually, through small connections, honest conversations, and quiet moments shared. It wasn't the kind of forgiveness that erases the past or pretends nothing happened. It was the kind that acknowledges the wound but refuses to let it shape the future. Michael would never be the perfect son I once dreamed of. I would never be the perfect mother he may have wanted. We were simply two imperfect people, bound by blood and decades of memories, trying to carve a new path through the wreckage. At 72, I have learned that life rarely follows the script we write for it. The people we love can disappoint us. Trust can shatter. Dreams can collapse. But I have also learned that our capacity to rise from the ruins is greater than we ever imagine. The house on the Florida coast is proof of that. It was built through determination when everyone said a widowed seamstress could never manage it. It was defended with courage when those who should have protected me tried to take it away. And now, it has become a place of healing, where wounds slowly close. Barbara Miller, the old woman they thought could be so easily deceived, turned out to be the strongest of all. Not because I never fell, but because I always found the strength to rise. Not because I never felt fear, but because I acted even when I was afraid. Not because I never suffered, but because I refused to let my suffering define me. This is my story. A story of betrayal and loss, but also of dignity and strength. A story I hope inspires other seniors to stand up for what is rightfully theirs. A story that reminds everyone that age does not make us weak or useless, it makes us wise and resilient. And the house I built with love and sacrifice still stands, proud and unyielding on the Florida shore, its porch facing the Woy, endless ocean, just like me. Perhaps the deepest pain wasn't the jewelry lost or the scratches left behind in the house. The hardest truth was realizing that sometimes the very people we love most can wound us the deepest. Yet through that, I came to understand that love within a family cannot rest only on blood or titles. It must be built on respect, honesty, and responsibility. I forgave in my own way, not by forgetting or pretending nothing happened, but by accepting the wound and choosing to move forward. Because I believe each of us has the right to protect ourselves, even if it means standing against our own kin. And what about you? If you were in my place, would you choose forgiveness, or would you keep your distance to protect yourself? I would love to hear your thoughts. And if you want to continue walking with me through stories of family, love, and the lessons life teaches us, stay here with this channel. Perhaps in the next story, you'll find a part of yourself too.